What's going on, YouTube? Levi of Old Iron Off-Road. I have been super slacking on turning out videos lately. We've just been busy in the shop. We've got a whole new lineup in here getting various stuff and things. But today, we're going to talk about this guy. What are we doing? Well, I'm going to show you. Yes, we're going to take a reasonably well running 196 in this 800. We're going to fuel inject it. And of course we're going to stuff a turbo on it, because why not? Before we start into this, we're going to go ahead and take bets on how long the little baby clutch in this 196 is going to last. I'm betting one good hard boost and it's going to pull right through it. That'll be a problem for later, Levi. But figured I'd take you along with the process, let you hang out. We'll get this thing fit up. We've actually already done some work on it. I'll show you what we've done. So currently as it sits, we are going to run a Rochester 2-barrel. This is the 2GC, I believe, which is the bigger bore of the 2-barrel Rochesters. These all run 2-bar internal map sensor, so that sets you into a map range for a little bit of boost. 14 pounds, two 100-pound-per-hour injectors, 2-bar internal map sensor, and a little bit bigger bore throttle body, so should be good. We've got this set on here. We did have to do some work as far as adapting it. There is a single barrel to 2-barrel adapter, which is here. I did have to pull the lower water neck off, and I had to take 120 thousandths out of the bottom of it to get a minimal amount of clearance between the regulator and the water neck because it was hitting. So what else have we done? Well, we have rerouted the exhaust, which I'm going to change that. We've started on the exhaust. Let's see if I can get you under there and show you what we've done. You can see in there, we've got some stainless work going in, crosses under the oil pan and starts up there. We're going to change that. I'm actually going to cut this 90 out. We're going to rotate it up. We're going to bring it up right here because I've made some changes as to where the turbo is actually going to live. We did make a support for the turbo. It is going to sit directly on top of this motor mount. I did have to take some of the heater hose off of this because it needs to be reclocked because it was in the way of the turbo. Now, believe it or not, these did come from the factory. Some of them, the 152s, came with the turbo version. It was a draw through and not a blow through. And I believe the turbo actually sat over here on the passenger side. There just really wasn't any room for it on this one, and we didn't want to do a draw-through setup. We're going to do a blow-through. We have a distributor coming for it, so we're going to do full timing control. We had a Weber on it initially, and the guy that owns this truck wanted to try to boost it with the carburetor, which we could have done, but I was concerned that it wouldn't perform well at all RPM ranges. It would probably do okay at cruise, and then not good at wide open throttle, or it might be one of those that you just had to blast around everywhere, which we didn't want. So the fuel injection in this size turbo, I think, will lend well to actual drivability, which is what we're after. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna put you down. We're gonna do some work. Let's get into it. So the first thing we're gonna have to do is I've pulled all of this vintage plumbing supply stuff off, which, believe it or not, is factory. And we're going to have to reclock a lot of this to get it to where our heater hoses don't interfere with the turbo. So we'll get this stuff put in and get our heater hoses routed and basically mock everything back up as far as our coolant hoses. We've got this big chunky bypass hose that has to go in here, and with the turbo living right here, things get pretty tight. So we're going to get these heater hoses moved, and then we can jump back over to this and kind of mock the turbo up and get it tacked to the motor mount before we resume with our exhaust placement. I wanted the turbo located exactly where it was going to live before I did anything else with the exhaust. So let's do that. 32 wrenches here. One of them's got to be the outside, right? Definitely more room for activities now. Should be able to get a distributor down in there, and everything looks reasonably tidy. So the next thing we need to do, we need to get this support and the turbo in and mounted where it's going to live. I tried to build the exhaust and get the turbo set, and it was a pain. So the turbo needs to be where it is going to live, and then basically build the exhaust to it. So we're going to get this guy in. Got some room between the bypass hose, and we've got room between the steering shaft. So if it fits, it ships. So I think the next thing to do is going to be to cut some gussets for this guy and get them tacked in. That way this thing is not bouncing. And the reason why, so if you're curious as to why I put a support on the turbo, this turbo is way up in the air. The last thing you want is a turbo hanging from your exhaust that high in the air. If it was directly to the manifold, it would be one thing. You've got all the manifold bolts holding it, but you just don't want a turbo sitting on the exhaust. I considered tying it to the body and then putting a flex coupler in between the exhaust, but I was really afraid that the movement in the engine would just break the exhaust coupler. So this was the next best solution in my opinion. So yeah, we'll get some, I can definitely run some reflective heat barrier on this hose. I don't think it's going to be a problem. You got to think it's got coolant moving through it, so the heat's not really going to be affecting the rubber that drastically. It's not like we have a whole lot of options. So I'm going to get some gussets made for this guy, and we'll start cutting on the exhaust, see what we can come up with. All right, so we got some gussets blasted out. We got one. We got two little fancy doodads. I'm going to pull this turbo off, see if we can get these guys wedged in there and get rid of some of that. got that dude welded up. Spritz a little paint on there. Should hold the turbo, which is its job. I've gone ahead and cut the exhaust apart where I needed to cut it, and I've got the main section back underneath the truck. We've got a couple of pre-cut sections, which I should be able to do what I need to do with what I've got left. I'm gonna put the camera down, crawl underneath this guy, and fiddle with exhaust. So no sense in making you watch that. Once I get the exhaust all pieced together, I'll bring you in and show you what we got. Well, it took some doing, but we got her in there. Turbo mounted up, exhaust is tied together. So we're gonna tack this last side together. I've got one more piece to tack. I'm actually gonna MIG that one because I can't get a TIG in there. And if you'll notice, a lot of times on hard to reach stuff, you'll see me actually tack stuff together with the MIG. What we do is when we get it out, we'll actually tack a couple of other spots with the TIG, and then we'll gouge out those tacks and then just TIG back over all of it. So yeah, exhaust is done, turbo is mounted, everything is in a happy place. I'm happy with where everything is. Engine, turbo, and exhaust, everything moves together, so shouldn't have any issues with cracking exhaust. Drop this guy out, set it up on the table, get ready to back purge it, take it out. Another day out here in the shop. We've got this hot side all welded out. Looking good. Get this guy put back on the truck. Hey, you still watching? If you're still watching, do us a huge favor. Take 2 seconds, reach down there, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure to leave us a comment. And I know you've heard me talk a million times about merch. We actually have merch in production now. We've got 3 shirts. We have the OG Old Iron Off-Road shirt. We've got a big order of those coming in. We have the Duck Slayer shirts, which I'm not sure that I've shown to you yet. We've got those. And we also have a Rusty Truck Club shirt coming in that I'm sure you're gonna dig. As soon as we get them in our hands, we'll get them up on our merch store. We'll leave a link down in the description so you can get yours on our webpage. Thanks. Turbo and hot side bolted up, one step closer. One thing I'm going to mention while we're looking at this is this has already been clocked, this intersection. So you want to make sure that your feed port and your drain port are pretty much vertical. A lot of times the compressor housing and the turbine housing are independently clockable, but with this being an external, or with this having an internal wastegate and diaphragm, you can't move this because this rod has to stay in line with the gate on the back of the housing. So this position kind of is what it is. And that is actually what gave us a little bit of trouble on fitting this up, because this diaphragm can had to clear under the hood, which it does. So that's in. I'm gonna try to get you in there and show you our turbo drain. Ay, my arm's stuck. Let me get a flashlight. You can see there we've got a fuel pump block off plate that I just tigged a 10AN fitting into. So that should work out really well. And you can also note down there, there's actually a port directly behind it. Just has a pipe plug in it. I'm gonna move that cinder to that back port, and we're gonna come straight off of that port with our oil feed to the turbo. Plumbing should be reasonably easy as far as the oil side. So with that in, I think we can actually start on our downpipe. And you know, the exhaust is usually the biggest struggle with this. With this being a 4-cylinder though, it definitely makes life reasonably easy. So we'll get that put together. I'd mentioned clocking this. These bolts are still loose. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the compressor housing down, exhaust housing down, and we can start on the downpipe. Get into it. So delay a game. We're not gonna build the downpipe. We're gonna get our distributor installed. This just showed up, and we'll go ahead and get this in, get it out of the way. Just so you know, Hamilton Fuel Injection build does have all the distributors that you might need for your SVs, 4-cylinders, whatever. They're available for timing control, and they're available in a standard HEI style distributor with the, I think they've got a 4-pin module in them. So make sure to check those out if you need one. I'm going to kind of talk briefly about installing this. Now, this doesn't install at a preset static timing, which means you're not going to drop this in with the engine balancer setting it like 10 degrees advance and lock it down with the rotor facing a cap terminal. You're actually going to install any of the Holley Sniper distributors that you would run for the Holley timing control, unless you're running like their Hyperspark, which for the internationals, you're probably not going to be doing that. These are going to install with a 45-degree crank angle. So basically the process for installing this is you're going to set the engine to 45 degrees before top dead center. You're going to drop the distributor in, and you are going to line up the magnetic pickup with the reluctor wheel. You're going to get those dead set, and you're going to lock the distributor down. Then at that point, what you're going to do is you're going to calculate somewhere in between your total timing and your initial advance. Halfway in between that, you're going to roll the engine to that specified timing number, and then you are going to phase the rotor to whatever cap terminal you are using for your number 1 or number 8 cylinder, as it were. 4 cylinders time off number 1, V8's time off in number 8. The reason they do that is they actually use a 45-degree crank angle and actually retard the timing to get you in your range. And I would imagine they do that just for latency in the signal. Maybe it gets a signal before it really needs it. Now, some of the systems, I'm pretty sure my Terminator X, it actually retards the timing 1 full cylinder, or maybe backwards. Advances the timing 1 full cylinder. It's a lot of advance or retard on that system. So just be aware of that. The crank angle does matter on these units, but that's the basic process. We're going to get the engine set on the compression stroke to 45 degrees, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we install it. I am going to be nice, and I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on the gear. Just because I'm nice. Oh, we probably need a gasket. Definitely tell I haven't been working on IH engines as much. I used to have piles of gaskets and miscellaneous stuff kicking around. I really don't have any of that stuff anymore. need to line up the pickup, and the pickup on this little dude is super hard to see. And I will tell you that if you're setting this up for timing control, if you don't get that pickup dead nuts on, you will fight weird base timing. So make sure you get that as close as you can. I don't know where my freaking flashlight went. You got my flashlight? Hey, my flashlight. It's somewhere, I'll find it. All right, so there are various methods of how we can achieve that 45-degree reference mark on our balancer. You can take the diameter of the pulley, figure out some math, make a piece of tape, and you can get it dialed, or you can just do what I do. I'll show you. Basically, we've just laid a piece of tape in there and copied over the first 25 degrees of advance onto that piece of tape off of the timing cover mark. Focus, camera, focus. There you go. And extended it out to 45 degrees, taped it on the balancer, and that gives us a reference point of where we know 45 degrees is on the balancer. So what we're gonna do, or what we did, is we lined that 45-degree mark up with our 0 mark on the balancer, and then we roll 0 to 0 on the timing cover. That's 45-degree advance. Now what we're gonna do, or what we've done, is we have gone ahead and taken the cap or the rotor off. Sometimes it's really tough to see in there, and we have aligned one of the fins. Let me get my flashlight back out. And we have aligned one of the fins on that rotor with the pickup in this magnetic pickup. Now it's hard for me to show you. I can't really, I might be able to get you in there and let you see. You can see that rotor is lined up with a magnetic pickup. So that's our 45-degree crank angle, 45-degree advanced crank angle. We can lock the distributor down. Now we're going to throw the distributor cap back on there and make sure our cap is happy where it needs to be, that the lockdown tabs aren't interfering anywhere, and then we can put our rotor back on and we can phase our rotor in. Where'd you go? How'd you get there? All right. So we're going to pop our rotor back on, and this is a 2-piece rotor, and that's what I mean by phasing in the rotor. It is adjustable. So what we're doing here, I'm going to try to give you a decent yet not crazy explanation of what is happening. So at 45 degrees of advance, the rotor and the pickup are going to line up, and it's going to trigger ignition. If our rotor wasn't phased to a cap terminal, it really wouldn't have anywhere to go. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out half of our total timing, roll the balancer to that point, phase the rotor to the cap terminal, and then at 45 degrees when this thing fires, or half of our total timing when the thing fires, it's going to be pointing right at our cap terminal. Does that even remotely make sense? I don't know how it even makes sense in my head. So, you know, we'll try to do a little better as we're doing it. Well, now what we need to do is we need to figure out half of our total timing. So we're going to run 12 degrees of base timing, and we're going to run probably 38 degrees to 40 of cruise timing. So we'll call it 40. We can adjust it in the tune. 40 degrees and 12 degrees is 28 degrees of difference, right? So half of 28 degrees is 14. 14 added to our initial advance, which at our base is going to be 12. That gives us 26 degrees of half of our total timing. Hopefully that makes sense. Walk with me here. What we're trying to do is get it so when this thing fires, say we're running at 26 degrees, that's exactly half of our advance. The spark is happening dead center of that cap terminal. And what that does is that allows the spark to advance and retard or sweep off out to the edges of this terminal as it advances or retards. If we're off one way or another, it's possible that the spark could run off of our terminal, or it could even bridge over to another one. So hopefully that makes sense. So like I said, we're shooting for 28 degrees before we phase in our reluctor, or before we phase in our rotor. So now we're gonna roll the balancer up to 28 degrees of advance. That's not it. Now we're going to pop our cap on, the one that we've got holes in and the ones that we have the cap terminals marked. And we're going to see where the rotor is actually pointing. And usually Bill has them set up pretty darn close, and this one is pretty darn close. We could probably go just a little bit. It's pretty darn close. We'll go a little bit further forward, but that gets us in the ball game. Whoop, that was a lot. All right, so it's really hard to see, but we've rolled the distributor, we've rolled the balancer up to through midway of our total timing, and our rotor is pointing dead center of this cap terminal. So this is going to be our number one, and what that does is that allows timing to advance and retard and sweep back and forth past that cap without running off of it. So now we can actually lock this down. And we can put our real cap back on. But yeah, we're gonna get this distributor cap thrown back on, and I'll probably make a video really just going through timing one of these sniper setups for timing control. So we'll get that put together. There's the plug wires on it. We'll move on to the downpipe. Went ahead and threw the plug wires on. Still got to make a mount for the coil, get the coil driver all in. We still got to do all the wiring for it. So now I do think we'll jump over to the downpipe. It's a V-band style. I actually need to make my turbo drain too. I've got my AN fittings all put in place, but actually, yeah, I think I'll make that turbo drain first. That way I'm not trying to work around the exhaust. So we'll get that guy made. it's looking good. Got both of the pipes kind of on the same angle in both planes. And the down pipe is definitely heading in the right direction. Got plenty of room down there where we're going. I dig it. So we're going to be continuing to work on this project. Next time you see this thing, we'll be getting ready to fire it up. Make sure you're subscribed. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks for taking the time to watch these videos. Reach down there, click the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Give us a like, leave us a comment. Thanks for watching, and as always, enjoy.